On to the next video. Let's talk about praxeology. Specifically, let's get on to the matter of it. Now, for those who don't know, praxeology is the study of human action. It was emphasized by Ludwig von Mises. Who is Ludwig von Mises, you may ask? He was a leader in the Austrian School of Economics. As one might guess, these people are big on individual property rights and other such things based on the idea that the economy is organic. It is the sum total of human action. Hence why praxeology is so important to them. They believe firmly that things are structured in that basis. And so a lot of people will apply praxeology outside of economics and towards just people as a whole. The whole idea behind praxeology is that people act for a purpose. It further argues that people are rational and thus behave in certain ways to achieve an end state. So for example, let's say I want to get food. I know of a store over there, somewhere down the line. I walk to it, I buy food, I come back to eat it. I had a rational desire, food, I wanted to get it, and so I came up with a plan and executed it to achieve such a goal. But of course, it has some issues. Pure praxeology is simply not the case for people, because people aren't purely rational. Emotions often cloud judgment and make people act without purpose. After all, when you're feeling an emotional rush, do you think, man, I really should be doing one thing or another? No, you just act. An enraged person is rarely thinking about what they want other than, this is bad, act accordingly. That is how they think. That is how they react. They're not fully acting with rationality, if at all. They are acting more on instinct and on impulse. And these impulses will always exist. And thus a perfectly thought out and purposeful action will not be the only human action. All of them will have some cases with emotional reactions. Study any human. I guarantee you'll find at least one instance of them acting not rationally or for any real purpose that they thought of, sometimes even damaging what they intended, but just doing so because it was an impulse, an instinct, an emotional reaction that wasn't fully thought through. People are not robots. They do not think purely mechanically. They have their own distinctions, their own irrationalities, and that must always be taken into account. Praxeology thus must incorporate this into its understanding of human behavior. Now, that said, I guarantee you, most people who actually study praxeology or take it seriously understand this, at least at the base. They may argue against bits and pieces of it to argue instead that no, praxeology is just fine. If you act on emotion, you're still acting with a purpose, etc., etc. They probably have their own responses to this, would not be surprised. I don't study praxeology 100%, so I can't say for certain on anything, because, well, I don't study it like it's a religion, so I don't have exacts. I don't even study it part-time, because, well, I have other things to study as I'm a college student. But I do know enough to make such statements, even if one may argue I'm wrong. But the reason this matters is because it is a thing that everyone must factor in. Praxeology is a real thing, and the idea that people act for a purpose is a very reasonable position to have. People act, and many times it is for a purpose. Excuse me. See, when it comes down to it, people want things. They desire things. They're naturally selfish, or should I say self-interested if we're being more neutral. Now one may argue that's bad, but it's simply how people are, and it's something that should be incorporated into our reality and how we understand it. Because, let's face it, things are not always going to be simple of just, or rather as simple as just, this is right, this is wrong, do it. People have to actually think. What's in my interests? What do I want? What can I want? What can I achieve? How do I act to get something? Let's take a very simple action. Dress. When you pick what you wear, what you dress as, you are, in some ways, choosing to do something. I'd argue you're doing a lot of choosing in such a case. But let me ask you, when you pick something, are you thinking in some ways of what others are going to think? Likely so. And so you can address appropriately to that situation, or personally dress differently for a reaction. People are always going to have some interests that they would like to satisfy. Could be the attention of others, could just be a laugh, could be hunger, could be a desire for more, of just money, or fame, or anything else. People have these desires. People are selfish, inherently. That's just how they are. And so they act accordingly. Just as you would pick a dress for a specific occasion, so too do people act based on certain desires, and they engage in behaviors to achieve results. Just as a bird might peck a button to get food, so too do people take actions, like working, to get results, to get money, to get connections, etc., etc. People are not purely reasonable. That much is true. People act on emotion plenty of times, often doing things that are irrational or just plain stupid. I will tell you straight up, when it comes to people I have met, I have seen so many act in ways that are illogical, impractical, and unreasonable. Does that suddenly take away from the fact that they are rational human beings? No, they are. They just act stupid sometimes. That's just how people are. One may argue that, hey, sometimes that's wrong. Indeed, sometimes it is. Let's face it, you don't want to go to a funeral acting like an imbecile. But while those impulses do exist, so too does man's capacity for rationality, our sapience. The ability to choose what we want, to pursue what we want, make long-term plans. Excuse me. Those abilities are what separate us from most of the animal kingdom, and of those that remain, the vast majority cannot act upon them fully. It is a distinctive thing that separates us from most other animals. Frankly, I'd argue it separates us from pretty much all other animals. But hey, I may hear you, you may disagree. Maybe you want to include dolphins in that list for some reason. But that reason is important, and it should not be neglected. Praxeology is not wrong, necessarily, just slightly modified from the initial idea of complete rationality. Humans are not completely rational. We have the ability to be, but it is our choice to engage in such rationality that decides how much we engage in it. Some people will just be emotional wrecks, constantly going between action and action and action, regardless of any combined purpose, just because their emotions tell them to. Others will do their best to act according to reason and to practical behavior, and so will move along life following praxis and following their goals. But it is still a matter of choice, and individuals are still individuals, even if they don't have a known praxis. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one.